From El Pantera's confusingly complex fighting style leaving opponents puzzled to his terrifying knockout artistry in the octagon, here's why Yair Rodriguez is a lethal fighter. With more and more elite strikers entering the UFC with each event, the promotion is getting saturated with the typical straightforward type of striking. But Yair outshines everyone with his off-the-wall fighting style, which no one seems to understand. Rodriguez is as flashy as a striker can get, sticking out like a sore thumb in the UFC. Nowadays, with all these extremely strategic, technical fighters like Israel Adesanya, it's rare that someone pulls off some never-before-seen crazy moves. Luckily for us MMA fans, Rodriguez has the most ridiculously epic moveset the UFC has seen in a long time. Hell, the guy jumps around the octagon, throwing flying knees. He hit MMA legend BJ Penn with a damn 360 spin kick. I mean, how did he even manage to pull that off? But the trick here is that no matter how over the top it looks, it's all part of his calculated strategy. You see, Yair's opponents have no idea how to deal with his spinning kicks and unexpected back fists. So once he catches them off guard, they're left wide open for him to take the kill shot. Surprisingly, he also ends up landing his ninja-like moves, which is insane because that means he practices them so much. He can pull them off in a match against the deadliest fighters. Don't get me wrong though, because while Yair is a wild fighter, he can also be extremely technical when necessary. El Pantera's superior understanding of movement often gives him a positional advantage in fights. His expert use of feints creates traps for his enemies that even the best can't help falling for. Honestly, Yair's creativity and diverse moveset is simply too much for the fighters to handle. The crazy thing about El Pantera is that it's not just that his style is confusing, but he has the brutal striking skills to finish the job too. Yair is widely considered one of the best strikers in the UFC today, and that doesn't just happen out of thin air. You see, Rodriguez started learning Taekwondo at the young age of 5, and now has an insane 25 years of martial arts training under his belt. Because of his ability to switch stances, his kicks just can't be competed with, giving him so many options to devastate his opponent. El Pantera's unnatural agility allows him to deliver head kicks whenever he wants, which is the deadliest weapon for an instant knockout. Even without his kicks, Yair is an outstanding boxer. His jabs are so fast that the opponent rarely gets time to react before they've already been hit. Especially when fighters are on the lookout for Yair's intimidating kicks, they end up making the massive mistake of undermining his fists. Yair's true knockout artistry comes in the form of his combos though. He skillfully uses his punches to throw off his opponents and leads up instantly with his kicks, performing a perfect setup and execution strategy. It's actually insane how big of an advantage he naturally has because there's barely anyone who can outstrike him in his division. And with every fight starting on the feet, he instantly has the upper hand. Logically thinking, with so much attention on his striking, his grappling and ground game must be weak. But in reality, Yair is skilled on the ground too. While expertly intimidating grapplers with his kicks, he keeps them from tackling him too often. If we're talking about his ground game, you have to look at UFC 188 when Charles Rosa managed to take him to the ground. Rodriguez pulled off some jiu-jitsu sorcery, reversing the takedown from below, ending up on top somehow.
Looking for the takedown.
This time he gets it.
Final seconds
And
of
he
the
gets
round.
reversed. Look at this kid.
Heck, he's got great defense from ground and pounds too, cause he maintains a really solid guard using his strong legs to push his enemies away. Even when he was mounted, Yair showed great control over Jeremy Stephens at UFC Fight Night, limiting his movements by grabbing his wrists to prevent a ground and pound. But by far the most impressive showcase of his grappling was his win at UFC 284 against Josh Emmett. Maybe Josh was too focused on Rodriguez being a striker that he didn't see it coming, but after spending some time defending his guard against Emmett, Yair clutched in his leg behind Josh's head and clamped him down in a triangle choke, forcing his opponent to tap. If that doesn't convince you that El Pantera's ground game is decent, then let me just leave you with an interesting fact that can't be disputed. In his whole career of mixed martial arts since 2011, Yair has never lost by submission. Just think about how insane that is for a striker. And if that still doesn't scare you, then let me talk about his never-ending stamina. To state the obvious, MMA fighters need to be cardio monsters to keep up in the octagon. But where the best fall to the ground, Yair still keeps going. You see, the moves that Yair does require an insane amount of stamina because he's flying around the octagon, throwing wild high kicks, and he does it consistently. Heck, compared to him, some fighters are gassed out in the second round, even if they aren't doing moves like him. El Pantera even takes it up a notch, giving career-peaking knockouts even in the 5th round. Really, this guy just doesn't give up. Even his chin is relentless, especially when a fighter starts to lose his stamina and gets tired. The less likely they are to take damage and still stay upright. But Yair has taken some devastating strikes right to the face and just brushes them off. I mean, Rodriguez has never been knocked unconscious in the UFC. His only losses are the doctor's stoppage and the unanimous decision. Even Joe Rogan thinks Yair's stamina is ridiculous. The infamous podcaster said that Rodriguez is so talented. Throwing a head kick is just like throwing a jab at him. And Rogan's actually right. In some fights, it honestly feels like he kicks more than punches. So fighters have to be at the peak of their fitness to even try to compete with Yair. Or else he'd easily dominate them in the later rounds because he's just on a whole other level. Just seeing the fighters he's beaten should tell you how big of a threat he is in the octagon. After all, Yair beat MMA veteran BJ Penn with a crazy smooth combo. Honestly, their whole fight was an excellent showcase of Rodriguez's ability as a striker, because he threw one of his lightning-fast head kicks, stunning the veteran, and before Penn had the time to react, El Pantera had already clipped him with a clean right fist to the chin. BJ instantly wobbled his way to the floor.
Vamos lá. Aí está. Entrou primeiro chute frontal, depois o direto de direita vai.
Where Yair finished him off with a flurry of punches. Obviously, with such a new and complex fighting style like El Pantera's, MMA veterans like Penn would have a hard time going against it. Even Dan Hooker wasn't able to keep up with Yair. At UFC 192, he just looked straight up helpless. Let's not forget how the whole match, Yair was pushing Hooker back with his front kicks, keeping him at the perfect distance for his kicks, but Hooker couldn't even reach him. Rodriguez even landed a weird backflip bicycle kick perfectly on Dan's head.
Come in with that style, applying a lot of pressure. Was this a part of your game plan?
Honestly, El Pantera was humiliating the poor guy. By the end, Hooker's face was completely bloodied and Rodriguez won by a unanimous decision. Heck, even Jeremy Stevens had trouble fighting Yair. In their second fight, Rodriguez was giving him kick after kick, turning his body red by the end, and Stevens' best strategy was to take Yair striking away by wrestling him to the floor. But El Pantera survived Jeremy's ground game. He won the match by unanimous decision again. His decision wins don't make him any less of an exciting fighter though, because his knockouts are absolutely awe-inspiring. I mean, just look at UFC 197 against Andre Fili. When Andre tried to block one of Yair's leg, he was left completely open to the other. Poor guy didn't even see it coming, but Yair loaded up the most devastating kick and Fili caught it head on, making everyone watching grab their jaws in horror. But if you want to talk about El Pantera's biggest career highlight, it has to be his knockout against the Korean Zombie. In the 5th round of a brutal match, Young Chen Sung launched towards Rodriguez to finish him off with his punches, but Yair elegantly crouched and dodged every shot, answering back with a lethal elbow to Korean Zombie's face, instantly putting him to sleep. And the craziest thing is that he delivered the final blow literally a second before the match ended. With a drop-dead knockout as severe as that, Yair really made the Korean Zombie live up to his namesake. Well, there you have it, fight fans. From El Pantera's terrifying knockout artistry in the octagon to his confusingly complex style of fighting, leaving fighters puzzled, that was all on why Yair Rodriguez is a lethal fighter.